Faith is to belief what facts are to knowledge. That is, what we believe in we cannot know, and what we know there is no point in believing in. You can't say that you believe in something that you know precisely and exactly because you know it. You have evidence for it at hand. It is proven. Of course, and adding to the confusion between the two, much of what we think we know is merely what we believe we know, in which we actually believe rather than knowing. Of course, it is hard to convince someone that they only believe something that they believe they know, even when what they present as evidence for it turns out under scrutiny to be circularly self-referential or in fact fallacious, in either case irrelevant, and even when, as often happens, there is far more evidence against than for. Faith is often expressed as if we fully believe in that for which in truth we merely hope, which still almost sounds good on paper, but in reality becomes about expressing in what we have convinced ourselves is a positive manner the negative of what we fear. As if by saying, "I believe the sun will shine tomorrow," you could cause the sky to be bright and dry rather than the Lord making it rain anyway, like the weatherman says it will, because all signs are of wetness. I have a hard time believing that this actually constitutes belief, though. It's more like as if you could enact a reverse paranoia through sheer force of will. As a technical aside, it is rather likely that the sun will shine tomorrow in such a case. It's just that, rather than what you're saying, there is also likely to be a great deal of moisture between here and there. Now, it does seem to me that for all I've said about not being able to know the things we believe or believe the things we know, there must be some kind of room for overlap between the two. Because if, for example, I am out walking in a field and I see God in a cloud above an oak tree, or in the oak tree itself, or in the movement of the breeze through the grass, or in all of these things, as long as I don't claim when I come home that through these things God has delivered to me some kind of message of bullshit, like that I should be immediately crowned king of the world, or that women must submit to their husbands because after all somebody's got to be on top, and as a man I have a vested interest in making sure that that's me. But if I should come home and say, "I saw God today," I should at least have a chance to explain myself, rather than you saying, "You can't have seen God. He ain't nowhere near this neighborhood. God is up in heaven, and that's where he belongs, and that's where he stays. And that's why you have to believe in him, because there's no way to know for sure you know. That's what faith is for." Well, fuck that. I have no use for a God who isn't right here. He can be up in heaven at the same time, too, if that's what he wants, and if he's as powerful as you say, if that's the line you're taking, it's certainly within the limits or lack thereof of his abilities. And if he's really as unmindful of others as your belief seems to indicate, he certainly does do anything he can do just to prove he can. Because everybody knows you can't just say so. Once you say it, you gotta do it. It takes the restraint of a certain kind of power not to feel like you gotta go pushing your way around like that. The God I believe in doesn't necessarily know everything. As a matter of fact, he prefers not to. There is something fascinating in the discovery of what happens next only by allowing it to happen that can't be found in full-on omniscience. The God I believe in might love everything, or maybe not, but if he/she/it does it is with the simultaneous knowledge that love of all of these things does not make all of them equally good, and some of them are going to have to go at some point for the rest of them to go right. Or you just get bound up in repeating the same cycles over and over and over again with little or no variation. My point being that if a God of love eradicates evil, when he does so, he does it not triumphantly nor childishly ecstatically, as so many seem to suppose and attempt to emulate and embody in their own doings as if they were themselves worthy, but with a sense of sorrow that a better way could not be or was not found. The God I believe in might be all-powerful, but as with omniscience, omnipotence becomes rather boring rather quickly, so while he might technically be able to make you do anything he wants you to, usually if you don't want to, he just goes and finds someone else more willing to follow his calling. On the other hand, I'm also the guy who says that if Judas Iscariot hadn't existed already, God would have had to invent him, provided that that story happened anything like how we're told. After all, a betrayal needs a betrayer, so Judas should be maybe not sainted, but at least congratulated rather than condemned for doing his job and getting it done, whatever his misgivings afterward. It's difficult to reconcile his suicide with a belief in a forgiving God, but all things considered, it would be surprising if Judas's faith, or at least his understanding, was not somewhat flawed and limited, as my own understanding is flawed and limited, but I wasn't there, so all I can do is rely on what I believe, or know, or believe I know.